What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Built for Anything audio experience podcast. I'm your host, Hertz, and we got a couple things that we're going to talk about today. Let's start off with the Vegas shooting that happened this past weekend. And man, my heart, my thoughts, prayers goes out to all those that were affected. It's a scary, scary experience to imagine you're somewhere having fun and just shots just starts ringing out and you don't even know where they're coming from. It's a very, very scary feeling, I could imagine. And it's a shame that quickly the narrative is becoming about the gun laws. And it seems like every single time there is some sort of a mass shooting, that's where the conversation goes. Now, the way I feel about it is this. Unfortunately, there are bad people in this world. There's always going to be bad and evil people in this world. Just like I say, there's always going to be people that are racist in this world. They're being bred every single day. And as much as we would like to believe that we could just ban all guns and solve the problem, I highly doubt that that's the case. Because you see, it's not so much the civilians, the goodwill people that you're taking the guns from. But by doing that, the people who are the criminals, they're not turning in their guns. Criminals are not the ones purchasing guns legally. Okay? So when you think of these gun laws and who they really affect, they're really affecting the everyday person, the responsible gun holder. And when you think about it, what is the benefit? My feeling is this. Hey, we have a government that wants to remove all the guns from the people and have you reliant upon them. Because when you think about what the Second Amendment was initially for, it's to protect yourself against the government if the government decides to overthrow the people. So if you're the government and you remove all the guns from the people, then it puts you in charge. And that's a very, very scary feeling, people. But I know what you're thinking. Why do you even need guns in the first place? I used to think that exact same way a couple months ago. Growing up in New York City, New York has one of the toughest gun laws out there. And I used to walk around and feel like, hey, nothing's ever going to happen to me. You look at guns as this evil thing. Only bad people have guns. And it wasn't until I moved to Texas that I realized just this kind of bubble that I was really in. This world is not a perfect place. We're not living in nirvana here. Bad things can happen to good people. Now, I'm somebody who I don't look for trouble. But I don't think those people who were at that concert were looking for trouble either. I don't think the people that were at the church that was shot I think about a year or two ago in, I believe it was North Carolina. I don't believe those people were looking for trouble either. You got people shooting up movie theaters, kids' schools, concerts, churches, I mean, you name it. And what we realize is when you look at places like Chicago, for example, Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And yet they have some of the highest murder rates. Take London into consideration. Tough gun laws as well. But over the last couple of months, there have been plenty of terrorist acts over there. So what does this tell? what it's saying is that that's not going to solve the problem. Ultimately, it won't. Because let's say you did do that. Let's say, you know what? Nobody has guns anymore. Well, guess what? There'll be people that'll use knives. There'll be people that'll use cars, which cars, by the way, kill more people than guns, but I digress on that. They will always find a means to cause terror. 9/11, they used a plane to crash into buildings. So when we live in a society where you have sick people, people who are inherently evil or just have bad intentions, what you hope for is that you're able to defend yourself against those people. Okay, so I'll give you an example. And I say this to a lot of people who are adverse to owning firearms, which I understand. Like I said, it's a big responsibility. I don't think any and everybody should own a firearm, but you got to put things in its proper context. It's the middle of the night. Someone's breaking into your home. You can't get to your phone, or even if you get to your phone, the police won't be there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. You got your kids, your wife in the house. What's going through your mind? I'm pretty sure in that moment you wish you had a firearm on you. Because in that very moment, you just want to protect the people that you love. And that's how I view it. I view it as your life is the most important asset to you and the lives of the ones that you care for. You want to be able to defend them in case of a threat. And I'm someone who, as a gun owner, I pray and I hope that I never ever have to use a firearm on someone. I really do. But I also understand that if push comes to shove, I want to go home. If it's my life that's being threatened by somebody else, I want to go home because there's people that care about me. There's people that want to see me come home. So I got to do what I got to do. And for people who simply feel like these things can't happen to you, I hope not. I really hope you're right. But let this be a reminder that things happen. And in the moment, believe me, you don't want to go out like that. So you take this situation that happened in Vegas. Am I saying that if those people in there had guns, it would help them? Clearly not, because the individual was, at 32 flights up in a hotel. He's aiming down. There's not much that you could have done from that angle. But, you look at those situations and you say, well, how did this person get those guns? And he didn't have a criminal background. See, this is the part that I see that the media is trying to exploit, because usually in these situations, you go into the background, you find all kinds of things on social media, you're able to stereotype that individual. And I think it makes people feel safer when they know that, okay, this person had a criminal past. There's some sort of traces in their background that shows that they were capable of doing this type of thing, mental illness, things like that. But what you're seeing with this individual is that it's none of those things. This person, 64 years old, retired accountant, never got arrested, no criminal background, no social media presence whatsoever. And look what he did. And I think that, to me, paints an even scarier picture to a lot of people, because what this shows you is that there are people who are smart criminals, meaning they don't fit the stereotype. So it could be anybody. And I think that's what scares people the most. But again, I think we should use these as moments of just being aware of what really goes on around us. And again, you know, it's really unfortunate what happened to those people. You know, you look at these situations and from the outside looking in, you just say, you know, how could someone even do something like that? And you try to justify it. But not everything is justified. Just not. I use relationships, for example. You know, sometimes, you know, you might break up with somebody or they might break up with you and they're constantly trying to find a reason. And maybe your reason could just be that you just got tired of the person. But that person is looking for other reasons, you know, and they may never get the answer to that. Some things in life, it is what it is. There may not have been a motive for it other than to cause chaos. And so, you know, when we talk about the gun laws, I think people just have to really be open-minded to understand how it really works. You know, not anybody can just purchase guns. There is background checks. There are certain guns that are more difficult to get, that require in-depth paperwork, waiting periods, deeper background checks. You do have to be fingerprinted in order to get a license to carry a gun. You know, it's just not, you know, there's plenty of laws in place already, and they vary from state to state. And so I just think, you know, we just got to educate ourselves better and understand that at the end of the day, do you want to leave your livelihood in the hands of the government? Or do you want to be capable of defending your own life if possible? All right. So that's what I say on that. Now let's switch topics. Let's get into some football. Let's get into some Cam Newton. Now, Cam Newton is a quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. And he was asked a question, I believe it was this past Sunday, actually it was media day. So I think it was either this past Sunday or somewhere during the week. In any event, I got the recording here I want to play for you guys. A reporter asked him a question about football, and here was his response.
Play well. Devin Funchess has seemed to really embrace the physicality of his routes and getting those extra yards. Does that give you a little bit of an enjoyment to see him kind of truck sticky people out there?
It's funny to hear a female talk about routes. It's funny. But fun is coming along, man. This is a big game for him because of, you know, him being from Detroit. And, I know he wants this win extremely bad, and just to see his growth over the years. He's a completely different player. We're not just on the field. And I told him and Benji today, those guys' preparation has been different this year, and credit the coaching for it. And just moving forward.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So a lot of people are very, very upset, specifically feminist groups, are really upset at Cam Newton for those comments. They felt like his comments were dismissive and inappropriate, for him to chuckle and say it's funny that a female would be asking him that question right before he goes on to answer the question. And Cam has lost endorsements, specifically from Dannon which is a yogurt company. He's been dragged through the media, ESPN, you name it, every single sports station, every single sports anchor has dragged this guy through the ringer. Does Cam deserve it? In my opinion, no. Cam Newton was obviously a bit too candid. And I look at intentions. Clearly, you could see that he didn't have bad intentions. He did answer her question. I don't think he was being extremely rude to her. He didn't call her out of her name or anything like that. And if you notice, nobody else in that interview room even piggybacked on that and thought negatively about it until afterwards. Then, people started to run with it, and then they want to go into his background. And, listen, the thing with Cam is there are a lot of people that don't like Cam right now. And a lot of it stems back to his MVP season. There were people who didn't like the way he carried himself throughout the season with the dabs. Every time he had a touchdown, people didn't like that. He was kind of showboating a bit. People also didn't like the fact that when racial talks are really, really high, in terms of Black Lives Matter, and I believe Kaepernick as well, his storyline was going on around that time of him taking a knee. They asked Cam Newton, and he wasn't on board with that. He kind of stayed in the middle. And people didn't like that. People still don't like him because of that. They say he's been chucking and jiving. And that's really where this stems from. So when you see him, having these issues, it's kind of like, oh, let's pile it on him. So my thoughts are, I could understand where he's coming from. I'll be honest with you guys. There's a lot of times where, not really a lot of times, but anytime I do come across a woman who really knows the intricacies of a particular sport, or, just really into it, and knows, and I'm able to have the same conversations with her that I would have with some of my homeboys, I'm intrigued by that. And I've made reference and told women in the past, like, wow, it's refreshing to actually be able to sit down with a woman and she really, really like and know the game of football or the game of basketball. Because you do come across a lot of women who, they either don't watch sports, or they only watch it because their boyfriend's watching it. And they only know a few things. This person asked him questions about route running. And he felt like, hey, he's never heard that from a woman. If that's the case for him, then that's his truth. But, a lot of people took it as him being sexist, and, it's all of a sudden he's a terrible person. He deserves to lose money. I'm not willing to go that far. And he actually, because the pressure was so much, he ended up apologizing. So let me play that clip for you.
I understand that my word choice was extremely degrading and disrespectful to women. And to be honest, that was not my intentions. And if you are a person who took offense to what I said, I sincerely apologize to you. I'm a man who tries to be a positive role model in my community and tries to use my platform to inspire others. And I own I take ownership to everything that comes with that. And what I did was extremely unacceptable. I'm a father to two beautiful daughters. And at their age, I try to instill in them that they can do and be anything that they want to be. And the fact that during this whole process, I've already lost sponsors and countless fans, I realized that the joke is really on me. And I've learned a valuable lesson from this. And to the young people who see this, I hope that you learn something from this as well. Don't be like me. Be better than me. And to the reporters, to the journalists, to the moms, super moms, to the daughters, the sisters, and the women all around the world, I sincerely apologize and hope that you can find the kindness in your heart to forgive me. Thank you.
Okay, so there you go with that. That was Cam's apology. And you know what was being said after that apology? He wasn't sincere enough. People had to dissect his apology. I'm sorry, but why are we so sensitive? Like, why are we really so sensitive? Like, if everything just hurts your feelings, what kind of society are we? You know, clearly, even in his comments, he mentioned the joke is on him because he felt like in the moment he was making a joke. He was trying to make light of the situation. You know, those media days are really boring. You know, you ask these athletes to show their personality and they really can't. You know, now I understand why guys like Marshawn Lynch choose not to say nothing to the media, because, you know, it's very hard to be perfect, people. You know, people say you got to be aware. I mean, how many people's aware all the time? Especially when, you know, if you're in a situation where your emotions, you know, obviously clearly he was excited. He just won a game against New England Patriots, which I'm going to get to them later. So clearly he was just trying to have fun. And people took it the wrong way. Yeah, but I think intent has a lot to do with it. And when we just start to look past that and just, you know, hang on every little thing and want, you know, just want the ultimate price paid for these mistakes. You know, there are people out there who are, you know, maybe the team should sit them down a game or two for this. I mean, granted, Cam, if you look at his background, he's considered a model citizen. You know, he's not a guy who, you know, beats up women, you know, who's had all kinds of domestic violence cases or, you know, driving drunk or anything of that sort. For the most part, model citizen. Just comes in Sundays and just tries to win the game. And it's just a shame that, you know, people try to take the opportunity to tear this man down. And I'm just not one of them, man. I don't think we should tear this man down for that. But, you know, and I'm really, I'm really embarrassed for all these reporters who none of them were objective about this. All of them was just kind of riding the same gravy train, like, especially people like, you know, Stephen A. Smith, who we all know he's on one more strike and he's gone. So he's not gonna ever say anything to ruffle the feathers of any feminist groups or any large social groups at all. So I don't expect much from him. But like I said, I think we need to also pay attention to intent and character as well. And listen, if we're offended by something, It's okay to say you're offended. So they say we should want to have dialogue, but yet people are so quick to say, I'm offended. Let's go straight to the punishment. That's the part that I don't get. So if somebody did something to you and the intent wasn't to offend you, give them the opportunity to understand where you're coming from and then move on. You don't have to always want to take it to the next level. But hey, that's the media. So let's go on to the next thing. The Patriots. So the Patriots played last night. They played against the Bucks. And I'm going to tell you guys, Patriots don't look good to me. I know they won the game. I know Tom Brady is Tom Brady. He's one of the best quarterbacks, greatest of all time. But they don't look good at all. The defense looks very suspect. They're getting out by the skin of their teeth against these teams. Hey, this is, if there was any year, this is definitely a year where it is going to be a very long season for them. And it may not end with a Super Bowl. So curious to know what are other people's thoughts on that. Let's talk about the NBA All-Star changes. So obviously the commissioner and the league has come out with some changes for the All-Star game. They claim they want to spice it up. And what they're doing is that they're going to have captains, and they're going to allow the captains to pick from a pool of players in which the fans select to create teams. So it will no longer be an East versus West thing. Listen, I personally feel like this is just a cover up for the fact that the East is very weak, and it would expose one person in particular, LeBron James. I feel like a lot of these changes in terms of how they're going to rest players and flopping rules and all these things pertain to him. Listen, if the All-Star game would have been East versus West, listen, guys would have just had to compete. Plain and simple. What I've seen over the last couple of years isn't about talent so much as it's about effort. They don't want to play. It's like a weekend getaway. Guys they're not really competing. Now, I don't know what it was back in the day, but I remember watching, East versus West, and you had Michael Jordan on one side, you had, all these other players on the other, and it was competitive. Well, for some reason, it's not. And I think a lot of it has to do with because all these players are younger, and they're all friends, they don't really compete against each other like that. And so I would think that if you really wanted to make things better, you would, somehow incentivize them in some way in order to make it competitive. The winners, to my understanding, do get paid more. There is a prize, but you got guys that are making significantly way more money than back in the day. So I don't know if whatever prize that is, I don't know if that's worth it for them. So they got to find other ways. But I don't think this was the answer for it. I don't think this is going to improve anything at all. It's just going to allow them to just create a bunch of different narratives. Obviously, you may have scenarios where Russell Westbrook's on one team, KD's on another. Obviously, you may have LeBron and Kyrie on opposite sides, or maybe even the same side. All of this is just to create a story. But again, if at the end of the day, they're not going to compete from at least the second quarter, because that's usually how they used to do it back in the day. First quarter was, just lollygagging. And then the defense picks up from the second quarter down. Now it's like they just lollygagging all the way into the fourth quarter. You have scores of 160, 180. It's nuts. nobody's really competing, and I think that's really what the biggest issue is. And they also need to address the slam dunk contest too, and try to, really do something with that, because right now it seems like the 3-point contest is the highlight of the weekend, when it's usually the slam dunk contest. You got to find a way to get guys in there who are creative, but guys that people want to see. Let the fans decide. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you can't demand guys to do it, but like I said, if you need to incentivize them in some way, focus on that, because or else, you're going to have a damaged product that nobody's going to want to see. And lastly, I'm going to talk about my Lakers. Obviously, it's been a couple preseason games already. I do like what I'm seeing from Lonzo Ball. I do feel like this guy is going to revolutionize the point guard position because of his skill set, size. I think he'll be able to rebound, pass, and I think he'll learn to, shoot on this level. So, a lot of times rookies coming into the league, everybody's not a great shooter. They improve over time. But I think he's definitely capable. Brandon Ingram, he's kind of disappointed me a bit in the sense that, I look at guys like Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma to me is what I hoped Brandon Ingram was. Now, I know Kyle Kuzma is older. He spent more time in college. And you know what? This is an indictment on some of these players. Some of these guys do need to play more organized basketball in college. But, different circumstances. There's money to be made in the NBA. There's a lot of guys that's going to be one and done. But you do see a difference between players who spend more time in college. For example, Michael Jordan, he spent a couple years in college. He was able to learn. And when he came out of college, got into the NBA, he never missed the playoffs. But then when you have guys like LeBron James, who came straight out of high school, it took him 4 years before he was able to make the playoffs. And so, there is something to be said in terms of skill level and experience. And we're starting to see that now. So I'm really, really happy with Kyle Kuzma. I feel like he's the steal of the draft. There's a lot that he can do. So he has a really, really good upside. And I just hope Brandon Ingram comes along. But it's going to be an interesting season. These preseason games are winding down and teams are going to start to really play serious, and the season's going to be starting earlier this year. So it's going to be exciting to see certain teams like the Timberwolves. Obviously, we know Golden State is capable of. A lot of people are looking forward to seeing the Cavs. Me personally, I'm looking forward to seeing Boston and what they got going on. I don't think the 76ers is going to make the playoffs. I see injury problems happening there. A lot of guys on there who can't really shoot. So that's my issue with them. But, every season is something new. Usually there's a team that surprises you. I think Houston looked really good. They faced the Thunder the other night. And I like what Houston is doing. They're a 3-point shooting team. They kept their identity even with adding CP3. I think adds a different element to where they can be better in the half-court game. So if the games do tend to slow down, he's somebody who can get you good shots, who could also hit the mid-range with confidence and take off some pressure from James Harden as well. So they're going to be really good. I'm higher on them than on the Thunder. I feel like the Thunder still has problems on defense. Paul George cannot solve all your problems on defense. So Russell Westbrook's going to have to change his game. He's going to really have to try to make a concerted effort to keep those other two guys and Carmelo Anthony and Paul George involved. He just can't get sucked into the defense and just want to attack and get the other players on his team just watching them. Definitely don't want to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to that. The league also came out, and a couple of GMs got together and said that they see LeBron James as winning MVP. I don't know what these guys are smoking, but listen, you can't win MVP playing in a weak Eastern Conference when you got guys in the West who, if they're facing tougher competition and they're able to dominate, it's pretty obvious. The MVP should be coming from the West. I would love to say it could be Kevin Durant, but obviously they're not going to give it to him because of his team. Steph Curry's obviously same thing with him. They tend to kind of blackball you a bit. Obviously, he won back-to-back, first unanimous MVP, so they won't give it to him. James Harden, I don't think he'll be in the runnings like that because the ball won't be in his hand as much. The person that comes to my mind is Kawhi Leonard, because he is San Antonio. San Antonio is a team that their system, they're usually able to stay in the top 2, top 3 in the West. If they can do that, I see him being a favorite. But it's going to be interesting. You can't count a lot of people out. It depends on who wants it. Hey, Anthony Davis might say, you know what, it's my time. We'll have to see. But no, I do not believe it's going to be LeBron James. Plus, I think the fact that he has a lot of these players on his team, he should be trying to pace himself. And if he really wants to maximize their potential, he needs to allow them to, get some opportunities with the ball in their hands. You have Derrick Rose, you have Isaiah Thomas. Obviously, he's not going to be there at the beginning part of the season, but when he does arrive, he's going to expect to get some touches. This is a guy that said he expects to still average 30 points a game. What is he thinking? How you possibly going to do that with LeBron James on the team, man? Good luck with that. Obviously, you have Dwayne Wade there as well, who I believe was brought there to help psychologically sustain LeBron James. Mentally, he is somebody who can be very fragile in moments, and someone like Dwayne Wade can be a voice of reason and someone there who's an added help in the locker room. So, that's a good pickup by them. But we'll see. So that's it for the podcast, everyone. Thank you for listening. It's the Built for Anything podcast. Subscribe, leave comments. You can find this on iTunes, Podbean, Google Play. Also, I have a YouTube channel as well, which is Built for Anything, BUILT, the number 4, anything, ANYTHING. Thank you for listening, guys. I'll catch y'all on the next episode. Peace and love, y'all.